What's up, crafties? I hope you're feeling lucky today because we have lucky number 7 in our Kaldheim constructed set review series for you today. So enjoy it and go out there and get lucky. Okay, next up, read this one.
Ascendant Spirit is 1 blue for a 1/1 snow creature spirit with Snow. Ascendant Spirit becomes a spirit warrior with base power and toughness 2/3. Snow. If Ascendant Spirit is a warrior, put a flying counter on it and it becomes a spirit warrior angel with base power and toughness 4/4. Snow. If Ascendant Spirit is an angel, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and it gains whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player. Draw a card.
So this is a throwback to, we had this mechanic in Lorwyn or something, where like you could essentially power up your creatures by putting mana into them.
The one everybody talks about is Figure of Destiny.
Figure of Destiny, right.
That's what everybody talks about first. I never played that. I had Warden of the First Tree, which was in like Cons, I think. Somewhere around there. So that's what I remember it from. But
one of the most recent examples of an effect like this is they printed a Hex Drinker into Modern Master, or whatever that broken Modern set was recently. And so that might be the most recent kind of example of a card like this that has been printed. But just to note, a 1 mana spirit. So, you know, this is maybe a thing. And I don't know, CGB, like... okay, here's the first question. Are cards like this generally better than they look or worse than they look?
Better.
Okay.
They're generally better than they look.
Yeah.
But it still depends on the abilities, the curve, and the format. Like, I'm not excited about this being a 2/3 that I sunk my first 2 turns into with no other abilities. If it gained flying, I would be like pumped. You know.
Oh, it doesn't have flying?
It's a spirit that doesn't have flying until you've put the 3rd mana into it. Yeah.
They keep doing this to me, man.
Yep.
To me specifically, spirits without flying.
Yep.
I just can't even.
It is a snow creature, and chat pointed out to me that if you activate the 4th ability multiple times, like you can just keep doing it every turn.
Okay, you can infinite that one, right?
So you can Crawling Barrens, and then you draw 2 cards, and then you draw 3 cards.
Oh, is that
the way that works? I believe it keeps adding that ability every time.
That that would be a good thing to verify.
Yeah, it would.
That is kind of cool, I guess. You're really doing it at that point. Okay, so one thing I like about this, as opposed to some of those other cards that we spoke about in the past, is that those ones could only be activated on your turn, right? And this one can be activated whenevs. So that's kind of cool. So if you're playing some kind of like flash countery deck, if you're running counter spells, this card goes up in value. Or just doing other instant speeds, if you have other flash spirits, this card could conceivably go up in value.
Any kind of a tempo sort of deck actually benefits a lot on Arena from having these cards that hold priority when your mana is open, because you don't give away your hand or when you're vulnerable when you don't have a counter spell. So I do think this card is better than people will believe it is, but it's so easy to come in low on this card because it sounds so bad to put that much mana into a 2/3 and then have to still put more mana into a 4/4. Then it meets Brazen Borrower and it's sad. Like those play patterns are ugly.
They are. Yeah, I feel like you're heavily incentivized to do the first activation, because you don't want this thing to just get picked off by a Bone Crusher or just any incidental ping from anything. That's pretty embarrassing. So I agree. Like, is this really what you want to do with your mana? Hard to imagine.
It's really hard for the opponent to block because of the curve, right?
Yeah.
So if you just play this on 1 and start attacking and the opponent has creatures, but it gets outscaled, say if you're the 2/3 turning into the 4/4, they can never block it.
At each point, right? That's a good point. There might be matchups where your opponent plays this on turn 1 on the play, and you look down at your hand and you're just like, crap. Could you conceivably bring this in a control mirror as a duke to where like your opponent sided out their removal and then you just got them?
We talked about that on my stream when I was positing like good places for this card, and that was like one of the ones that I said is like they'll have to have some way to interact with it. It doesn't have to be a flashy way. I mean, if they have 1 or 2 glass caskets left over, you feel really bad.
It's true. Yeah, you do. But, you know, another nice thing, one of the things I like sometimes about playing threats in control matchups is that it does eventually force your opponent to tap mana maybe on their turn, and maybe that gives you a window. Anyway, this card has many options and possibilities, and is a powerful card, which I think this next card is as well. So, Skemfa Avenger, 1 and a black, creature elf berserker at rare. It is a 3/1, and whenever another non-token elf or berserker you control dies, you draw a card, and you lose 1 life. Midnight Reaper, but with different numbers, and the ability is narrower.
I don't want to talk about Midnight Reaper tonight. I got, like, my opponent just ripped one of those off the top against me in the Kaldheim qualifier today and drew, like, 7 cards.
Oh, no.
It was so bad.
Yeah. It's so interesting, isn't it, how Midnight Reaper was printed, and then it saw very little play for a long time. And then eventually we got the right pieces, like the cat oven and all that kind of other stuff. And then it started to see more play, and now it's like a historic all-star. But it kind of took a while.
Yeah, this has the downside that it's not Midnight Reaper, and that when this dies, you don't get a card.
Yep, that is a big downside. And the 1 toughness just sucks.
On the bright side, what more in an aggressive deck, what more can you ask of your 2-drop than either they remove it or bad things happen to them? And that is what this card does.
Very good point.
For sure.
And it's a 3 power for 2 mana creature. And it's a 1 and a black. So this can go into black X aggressive decks. And yeah, there's a lot to like about this card. I think this card can definitely earn its place on your curve. For sure.
It is pretty frustrating that it's tribal in nature, because I would have loved to play Croxa after this and just get a card for it.
There you go. Yep.
But that's not an option. I think the tribal nature is going to hold it back a lot. Like, a lot. I definitely haven't seen enough from Berserkers.
I wish it had, like, even one more kind of more generic type, like Warrior, right? If it said, like, another Elf to Berserker or Warrior on there, you could kind of start to think about putting it in a variety of decks. But this does seem fairly specific.
Yeah, I think this card will see play as people try to figure out if the elf deck can work. But I think its entire playability, whether or not it even... if you ever see this on ladder, it'll be because the elf deck is good, but not because this card is good.
Yeah,
I think it's one of the best elf... It's one of the best elf options we have.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. This next card I want to read just because it asks an interesting question of us, right? Poison the Cup, 1 black, instant at uncommon. Destroy target creature. If this spell was foretold, scry 2. And the foretell cost is 1 and a black. So I ask you, CGB, is putting scry 2 worth it on a card which is basically Heartless Act plus 1 black mana to cast? Like, could you consider playing this in certain matchups?
There have been a number of cards over the years that people come to me and say this card is amazing because it's just like this other card but has scry 2. A good example is Anti-Cognition, which was pitched to me as the new Quench meets Essence Scatter, and it has scry 2. I just don't value scry 2 very much. It's literally one of those, if there's nothing else to do, abilities. I would never pay excess mana to gain it. I would only take it if it were literally free with nothing else to do, in the way that Castle Vantress provides it. all I had to do was play a land that produced blue mana. I was doing that anyway, and every now and then I'll scry 2. It's not the same as drawing cards. It's not how it works. So for me, this is not a card to me.
This card reads like just such an A player in limited, and it's just going to do nothing in constructed, which is so interesting because I feel like removal spells that are very good in limited are always kind of caught in constructed. But I'm with you. I think Poison the Cop is just so not it for standard right now. Okay, this next card though, people have been kind of excited about, so I'll let you take this one.
Usher the Fallen is 1 white for a 2/1 creature, Spirit Warrior, with Boast. 1 and a white, create a 1/1 white human warrior creature token. And we haven't boasted lately. It's been a few hundred words since we've boasted. So that is, you can pay 1 and a white after you've declared this as an attacker once per turn at whatever speed you like. So basically attack, and then for 1 and a white, make a 1/1 human warrior. So what do you think? Is Usher the Fallen the greatest Savannah Lions in the history of the game?
It is certainly a good Savannah Lion. I'm not as high on this card as I've seen some people be. So why do I say that? How good do you feel if you turn 1 Usher the Fallen, turn 2 attack and boast with it? How good is that really?
I guess you feel better than if you did absolutely nothing.
It's true. If you had nothing else to do on turn 2 in your aggro deck, then okay, you did it. But if you had nothing else to do on turn 2 of your aggro deck, you already lost.
Yeah, the place where it's really good is when you're against a control deck who has Absorb and Wrath of God in their hand, and Elspeth Conquers Death, and one card can put a lot of pressure on them, force the Wrath, and then you go from there. That's the dream scenario. And the fail case is you get a decent rate creature of 1 mana for a 2/1 with good types, Spirit and Warrior.
Right.
So
the types
card
are good.
Will see play. I think it's a bit overrated.
Here's the other thing. Does this card get better if you're playing that card that we keep referencing, the 2 mana Anthem? That's got to be good with this card, right?
You can name Warrior, and it buffs the human warrior
the thing
and the Spirit
and
warrior.
The token, right?
How about if you play Of One Mind with this card?
That does sound pretty gas. Yeah.
1 mana, draw 2.
Well, is it though? Here's the thing, because in that scenario, you basically did the divination, but you just get a token out of it, right? You spent divination mana to get a divination, but you just got a token.
God, what more do you want? I just wake up saying, give me Lingering Souls and a draw 2 at the same time, you know? It's all I want. What more do you want?
Oh my gosh.
Lucky Clover is banned. Get over it.
We're just sinking. I love how much mana we're sinking into this in the critical early turns of the game.
Okay, but answer me this. This or Ascendant Spirit? What's better?
Oh, the one we just read?
Mm-hmm. What's better? They're both 1-drops. They're both spirits. They're both mana sinks.
I have to say, if I'm spending the mana, I think I would rather upgrade my thing than make an extra 1/1.
I agree that Ascendant Spirit is much better.
Yep. Yeah, I don't buy this card, dude. I think 2/1 for 1 already has to be good in the format. I think that this card sees play if every single part of the Buffalo is good. I think the 2/1 for 1, the Savannah Lion needs to be good. You need to have a good aggressive deck, A. B, you need to have something or many things in your deck making Spirit Warriors better or paying you for having them. And then C, you need to have realistic scenarios in which you're getting paid off of the token. So if all of those things are happening, and they could, then yeah, this card could absolutely be good. But I just think it's a lot of ifs. And I think that people who look at this and think that spending 2 mana in your aggressive deck to make a 1/1 token after you attacked with this thing is good enough. It's if you took away the types, this card is not as good as you think it is, you know? So that's kind of where I'm sitting with it.
I agree. And it also has tough competition. You have Selfless Savior and Alseid of Life's Bounty in the 1 spot.
That's it. White is not hurting for the 1-drops at the moment. I mean, I'm glad they printed this. This is great. Put it in the arsenal. A+. Keep doing this, Wizards. I love it. You know what card I compare this to is Whisper Squad. How much play has Whisper Squad seen since Obosh rotated out of rotated out, got taxed out of existence, rotated out banned. Of the companion slot,
banned by Wizards,
right? Yeah. Basically none, right? So
no, you're right.
Well, I'm glad because some people seem super high on this card, and I was worried that you would be one of them.
Oh, no. The issue here is that we've had so many, like, just either no 1-drops or terrible 1-drops. People just got hyped that it had a power greater than its casting cost.
Yeah, exactly, man. We're starved. We're so starved for good 1-drops. So you referenced this card vaguely earlier, CGB. Why don't you read it?
In Search of Greatness is green enchantment rare. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a permanent spell from your hand with converted mana cost equal to 1, plus the highest converted mana cost among other permanents you control without paying its mana cost. If you don't, scry 1.
Interesting card.
Free spells?
Free spells.
Is that a thing? Are free spells good?
You know what this reminds me of? As Foretold.
Yes, a little bit.
That card was flagrantly unplayable. So
pretty bad.
Okay, this card would have had so many more possibilities if you took that other word out.
Because it doesn't power itself.
It doesn't power itself, and that is a massive blow against this card. Because curving this into a 3-drop and having this pay for your 3-drop, yeah, that sounds frickin' awesome.
Sounds broken.
Hit me with it, right?
Sounds broken. Let's not. How about we just don't do that level of broken again?
So the question is, this has to start paying you, like, okay, if you played a 1-drop, then on turn 3, this pays you by being able to play a 2-drop for free, which
kind of
could happen. That could happen. If
your 1-drop lived.
Yeah, if your 1-drop lived, and taking turn 2 off was okay. And then from there, see that the idea with this card is that you're like going up the chain for free, right? That's kind of the theory behind the card, is that like it casts a card and then the next turn it casts the more expensive card and then it casts the more expensive card. One of the issues with cards like this is that in order for these decks to really be good, you have to play decks full of like a wide variety of permanents with a wide variety of casting costs. And the problem with that is that if you look at the average curve of good decks in constructed formats, they usually don't like expensive cards are very, very, very carefully fit into constructed decks. You don't just jam a bunch of expensive cards in your average constructed deck and expect to get there. Most constructed decks play really hard-hitting cheap cards, and that's how they get there. So your deck without this card probably sucks. And so if you don't draw it, if you don't have it on curve, your deck probably sucks. I mean, like, am I speaking to the choir here, or like, how are you thinking about this?
Well, it sounds to me like people have been pitching you like magical Christmas land nonsense. Because when I think about the card, and deck building around it, I'm not thinking of a bunch of like 6 and 7 drops I'm going to cast for free. I just want a lot of good 4s, like a lot of them, so that we have decent 3s that are resilient or somehow crafty, and then we get multiple 4 drops on turn 4. Like it's a mana doubling on turn 4 if you get your 3-drop to live. You play 1 4-mana card for free, and then you have another 4 mana to use for something else.
So you're thinking, how about we just raise the curve in the average mono green deck? We raise the curve from stopping at 4 to stopping at 5, and then we just try to profit wildly off this card. Is that kind of what we're thinking? Like we play, like a bunch of questing beasts. Maybe we main deck like one more Vivian than we ordinarily would. And then we're just kind of like playing a traditional mono green game, but we're getting a bit cheaty. Is that kind of what you're thinking about?
Yeah, if you want to do something along the lines of a turn 3 Lovestruck Beast that then plays a Questing Beast and a Great Henge on turn 4, and another Search for Greatness with the other 2 mana, and then, yeah. So, I mean, that's that's the kind of absolute nonsense thing that you can do. It is just a little bit extra from what mono green's already doing. And the big headache is that you need your 3-drop to live. If it dies, all you get out of this is a scry. And you sometimes go on these rants. I need one. I need people to stop coming up to me saying, it's not a do nothing. You get to scry one. Isn't a scry worth it? Think of Search for His content. It's like
it's
that.
So funny you say that. I was just about to say, this is no Search for Azcanta.
But that's the stuff I hear all day. And it's like, man, I would not pay 2 mana for an enchantment that let me scry at 1 every turn, because I don't value scry that way. Scry, so just really quick, scry is like a third of a card per scry, because there's 3 scenarios. Either number 1, you keep it, in which case you did actual nothing. Number 2, you bottom it, but then still draw something you didn't want. And number 3, you bottom it and you draw something that you did want. Number 3 is the one where it was like a card, because you put away a literal nothing to get a something. So about a third of the time, depending on your context, what matchup you're on, but just generally speaking, a scry is like close to a third of a card. So I would rather have a 2-mana draw card than a 2-mana scry one any day. And twice on Sunday. So, just getting that out of the way. I think that there's interesting text on this card that takes it further, because I do hate the play pattern of play this, play a 3-drop, see the 3-drop die, and you're doing nothing, because that is the weakness that Gruul and Green have right now. They're very reliant on their 3-drop living so that they can great henge and do their busted things. So what I want to do is I want to play something like a flash card, so that I can flash it in on the opponent's end step and make it much more resilient to hate and removal. Even better if it's not a creature. So for example, if I play this on turn 2, and on turn 3 on their end step, I flash in Omen of the Sun, then the next turn I get a free 4-drop, because it says permanent. So, Omen of the Sun transferring to 4 free mana for a Doom Foretold, for example, and then 4 more mana to cast, say, that Angel Saga.
I was just going to say, I think that this plays fairly well with sagas. I kind of like that idea.
Also with Doom Foretold, you can sacrifice it when its job is done.
That's a good point. Yep, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. How many of these do you play in your deck?
That's a great question. I think it depends how warped you are to take advantage of it. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Because I could see a deck that's like, well, I have a curve that's a little top heavy in 3 to 4, so I'll play 1 or 2 of these. And I can also see a deck that's like, my whole, just 4 of it, cheating mana is what we're here for. And that's definitely where I'll start when I'm experimenting with the card, to see just what it does. It does say other, so if you have 2 of them, they can work off each other. They can
do each other. That's something, right? It's something.
A little something.
This is another card where I just want to tell the masses, don't craft it. Pretend this card doesn't exist. Let adventurous mages or skilled mages figure this card out for you.
That's the coward's way. No, just play this on turn 2. Then play Treacherous Blessing on turn 3, and go to town. Let nothing stop you.
Oh my gosh. CGB hates your wild cards.
I do. I have no respect for your budget. Just to be clear.
I look forward to the video that you release around your deck that you built around this card. I think fun things will happen. I definitely think it's sweet. I do not think that this is the next Fires of Invention.
Okay. I need to play it. This is one that I am completely unsure about.
Yeah. I like this card most to set up some kind of broken combo.
What do you think of the Omen of the Sun trick, but we play Questing Beast and we play the Squirrel on turn 4. Yeah. And just draw 3 more cards so that we keep getting more free spells.
Is that Toski in the art?
It is.
Because, that's something, right?
It's a hint.
Made for each other. You know what? Go right ahead, CGB.
Thank you. With your blessing, I will.
I'll gleefully watch you from afar. So our next land that probably isn't constructed playable, Skemfa Elderhall land. ETB's taps for a green, two black, black, green, and tap. Sacrifice this. So basically, you spend 6 on this. Up to 1 target creature you don't control gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Create 2 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. Activate this ability anytime you can cast a sorcery. Yeah, this just seems very weak.
I'm not going to write it off. I think it actually might be like a 2 of, and it's mostly because I think the 1-drops in Golgari are terrible. So you may as well play a tap land and play... Yeah, you may as well play a tap land, play a mid-range game, grind, and then do it.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't it be 2 -1/-1 counters so it worked awesome with Vorinclex? That's what bothers me.
Yeah. Things that don't work with Vorinclex. The small list. Okay, here's another one for us then. Notvold Slumber Mound. So this is the red version. So taps for red, ETB tap land. And the cost on this is 3 red, green, green. Sacrifice this, destroy target land, create a 4/4 green troll warrior creature token with trample. That's a pretty gas ability, I gotta say. It's an expensive ability, but that's some punch from your tap land.
Why aren't there giant trolls?
That's a very good...
Or trolls that are giants.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I look at the art and I immediately was like, okay, that'll turn into a giant. No, troll warrior.
Again, like, if you're playing this in some kind of a ramp deck, maybe? It's hard, right? Because, you know, you want your lands to, like, cast your spells and do other useful things that lands do. But, I don't know, man. Getting this and the only price that you had to pay was a tap land, that's pretty strong.
7 mana's
It is a lot.
A lot.
It is a lot.
It's so much, 7 mana.
I definitely think you're more likely to put this in a ramp deck. Cards like these were so much better when we could growth spiral them into play, to where the tap land tax wasn't as grave of a problem. Do we have other... Because, I mean, you know, red-green, them's ramp colors right there. So do we have, like, other sagas or just other cards that kind of like the growth spiral Oro kind of thing that are just helping us to put extra lands into play?
I mean, there's a lot of them, but they don't draw cards like the Simic ones.
Yeah, so they don't. I'm just trying to think if there are any other playable ones.
I mean, you want to play Dryad of Elysian Grove. You want to play, you know, people are waiting for Azusa, Lost But Seeking, to be a card.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
That's not how it works.
No, it's not how it works. So I agree. It's a stretch for me to imagine playing any of these cards, but this is the one that definitely hits the hardest so far that I've seen. But I will give you it is an exceptionally expensive ability. How about read this Tundra Fumarole for us?
1 red for a snow sorcery. Tundra Fumarole deals 4 damage to target creature or planeswalker. Add colorless for each snow spent to cast this spell until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end.
Oh my god, CGV, it's a free removal spell. It's gonna break the world. Isn't this card so good?
It's a red card that says Tundra on it. I hate it on principle.
Well, the art depicts something close to a dumpster fire, so...
It does. It really does.
At least it's being honest. This card is interesting. Cards that give you mana after you cast them definitely deserve to be paid attention to, evaluated, and considered. I'm kind of hating this, like, deal damage to creatures and planeswalkers theme that they've got going on here.
I'm over it.
Face burn is just not happening in this set, man.
I hate mono red as much as one can possibly do that, and I am over this not going face thing. I am not happy.
Yeah. It's hard for me to see where this fits in. The free mana's nice. It's nice.
Oh, I think it's a pretty sweet card. What are you going to do with the free mana? It's 3 colorless.
Okay, I've seen raging debates on this. Is that colorless mana snow mana or not? Okay.
You can literally go round and round on this. We did this on Twitch. In a poll, like, it was 60-40. So I'm always going to use that poll for the rest of my life to prove that Twitch chat is always at least 40% wrong and possibly 60% wrong. So that's why you shouldn't listen. But there's this weird line of reminder text. The way that the rules are written, snow mana comes from snow permanents. This is not a permanent. By the current letter of the rules, the mana cannot be snow mana. But there's this line of reminder text that is ominous, and it kind of implies that a rule change is coming, which is that snow is mana from a snow source. That is written on the card, and this is a snow sorcery. That's a snow source, if logic means anything.
Now, is it source or is it permanent, right? Because aren't the rules written like that if it comes from a snow permanent, it's snow mana?
Yes, that's what the current rules are written as.
Yeah.
But what does that reminder text frickin' mean if not that they're going to change the rule?
I mean, yeah.
And that's the awkward part. You could read it both ways, but if it does mean that the mana is not snow mana, it's the worst reminder text ever written in the frickin' world.
That is true. It is very misleading.
It is so bad.
Very misleading.
And the reason this is important is because if it's snow mana, you can use it to charge up Faceless Haven and attack with your 4/3 Vigilance after playing this spell.
Same turn.
Yep.
Yeah, that could if you're doing specifically that, it could be a pretty big swing.
There's also cards that trigger depending on how much snow mana was spent on it that this could be a part of. So it matters. It does matter.
It could, for example, bring back your king from the graveyard tapped. It's another thing that you could do.
Your zombie boy,
yeah.
I guess. Your Grixis zombie reanimator deck.
So if you have enough reliable ways to use that generic snow mana, then the more ways you have to use that are actually good, that actually do things that you want to do, the better this card gets.
Well, the more you want that rule to be the way that you want it to be.
Indeed.
Because it might just be generic mana.
Yep. That's a good point. I'm not an instant buyer on this card, but if it works the way we want it to, and if there are enough things to do with the mana, then this could go on to become a fantastic card. The other thing I want to say about it is that the flavor text is just something else. The only thing that smells worse than troll is burnt troll, which I expect CGB to be telling his chat from now on. This next card, I'm going to read it only because if we have the innkeeper for foretell, then a card like this could be interesting. Scorn Effigy. Artifact creature scarecrow that costs 3 generic mana. It is a 2/3. Here's the interesting thing. It has foretell 0. A 2/3 for 2 is just not good enough for standard, so I'm not going to try to sell anyone on that. But if we're getting some other kind of benefit from foretelling, then this card could be interesting.
And this is definitely a card that drives home the point that you cannot pay a foretell cost and cast the card on the same turn.
Yes, exactly.
So you have to play it if you foretell it on turn 2, you have to play it on turn 3.
So let me ask you this, CGB. What kind of a payoff would be enough of a payoff to make us want to put this card in a constructed deck? Would it be drawing a
the
card?
foretell Edgewall Innkeeper, I guess. Yeah, draw a card.
Yeah, if it was Scry, that wouldn't be good enough.
Copy the spell.
Supposing we reduced the cost of foretelling to 1 mana.
Nope.
So a 1 mana 2/3 wouldn't be good enough.
Nope. Not turn 3 or later. Nope.
Okay. Anytime I see a free cost on something, especially a colorless something, it just, I don't know, I take note of it. So this card probably won't show up in constructed
at all,
unless there's some kind of busted foretell thing. Oh, this card.
Oh, God.
This frickin' card.
Oh, and it's my turn.
It's your turn. We can split it up if you want.
Oh, this is my honor.
All right. I'll let CGB take this one.
I'm going to read. I have the great pleasure of reading to you Kazima, God of the Voyage, 2 and a blue, legendary creature god. 2/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Kazima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Kazima is exiled. You may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return Kazima to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it and draw X cards, where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. The other side of Kazima is the Omen Keel. The Omen Keel is a 1 blue 3/3 legendary artifact vehicle, and it has crew 1. Whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play lands from among those cards for as long as they remain exiled. If you didn't get all that, I understand. I read this card 4 times before even trying to process what a play pattern with this card might be like.
Yeah, this card is like a voyage of play design unto itself. I mean, geez. Let's start with the vehicle. So the Omen Keel, it's a 3/3 for 2. You do need to crew it, but it crews with a creature with any power at all. Now, here's what I missed about this card when I first read it, was that you play the defending player's lands off of this card, which is super weird. So basically, if you attack with this and it hits the opponent for 3, they exile 3 cards off the top of their library, and then you can play any lands that were among cards exiled with this for the rest of the game, which is pretty gas, I think.
Yes, and whether or not the Omen Keel is on the battlefield.
Exactly.
Yep.
So this thing is definitely helping you hit land drops. How useful those land drops are for your particular deck is very, dependent.
Oh no, it's not, because you have Kazima in your deck.
I mean, that's
every
true.
land drop is
every
useful.
land drop is useful, right? And it's at least going to generate generic mana if you can't use the colored mana. Okay, so that's super spicy. This card is already interesting. I mean, if you hit even once and get 1 land off of this, that's pretty gas, I think.
It's a really good Ophidian, right?
Yeah, it is. It's weird, but it's gassy for sure.
Yeah, 2 mana 3/3 that when it hits draw a card is freaking nice.
I mean, if this thing hits 2 lands, aren't you just doing it?
Yeah, you did it. You did it.
Here's the next question. Oh no, okay. It doesn't work with the DFC lands. I was about to get excited.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
It only works with the DFC lands that would be lands on the front.
Right. Okay, is there anything else we want to say about this before we think about the other side?
About the Omen Keel?
Yeah.
The vehicle?
Yeah.
It's whenever any vehicle you control damages a player.
Right. Yeah.
So when they reprint your Smuggler's Copter...
Oh, baby. Give it to me. I might sell my soul at a crossroads to get Smuggler's Copter reprinted into Standard.
The world would hate you for it.
I might do it. I would take the hate if I got to just have that sweet week to play it before I got banned. Yeah, so the Omen Keel is super weird, super interesting, fairly powerful effect overall, I would say. So then Cosima, what's the play pattern with Cosima? So we play Cosima on 3, and then at the beginning of the next upkeep, we probably choose to exile Cosima, because why wouldn't you?
Unless we're completely losing on board, need the blocker for some reason, don't have a Wrath in hand.
Right, exactly. So if we do, then basically every land you play until you decide to pull her in on your upkeep draws you an extra card and makes her bigger when she comes back, right?
Eventually, yes. So there's a lot of weirdness going on here. So first of all, it says... One thing that I've heard people say is that, if they agonize and remorse this, you just start charging it up and bringing it back. That doesn't work. It only gains the ability
if you did it on upkeep.
You exile.
Yeah.
Yep. If you do it to its own trigger on upkeep. So that's important. Then, so assuming that we get Kazima exiled, every time we play a land, we're basically storing up the ability to draw a card on a future turn. So every time we drop a land triggers that ability. That means if you were to Fabled Passage, you could activate this ability on your opponent's turn and return Kazima at instant speed as a blocker and draw the cards.
Wait, is that how it works?
Yes.
Isn't this still the beginning of your upkeep, though?
No.
Oh, you do it when you make the land drop.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
So, yeah, if you have a Fabled Passage, you are threatening to bring the Kazima out of exile, draw cards, and have that blocker.
Yeah, and it comes in at like minimum a 3/5, which is a good blocker.
Yeah, can you imagine this with Growth Spiral?
Oh,
just out of nowhere.
Gross.
There's probably other cards like Marasa Rootgrazer that people can mention that can do it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, CGB. Let's just give a modest scenario, okay? We play this on turn 3. We exile it on turn 4 and make a land drop. On turn 5, we make another land drop. And then, let's say on turn 6, we make another land drop. And at that point, we bring it back. We essentially spent 3 mana to get a 4/6 that could flash in at, I guess, land speed. Or instant speed if we have a Fabled Passage. And it draws us 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just very gassy.
Dude, pretty good Mole Drifter, right?
Very, very good. Yeah.
Can we mention that when it returns to the battlefield, it's not counterable? Like,
Yes.
it's an uncounterable ability.
Correct.
And if the opponent responds with removal, you still get the cards.
Yep. That is also correct. Now, if your opponent has Vorinclex in play, then you get half the
that's
cards,
interesting, right?
You get
Is
half the
it?
cards.
Is it?
Maybe. I don't know.
It says, where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. I believe if you put the counters on it before then
It just comes in with them.
It enters with the counters. It doesn't gain the counters.
Interesting. We'd have to double check the rules. Judge!
I think that you still would get the cards that you stored up. I think so.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm liking what I'm hearing here. It's admittedly you kind of took turn 3 off. I guess you can block with it the next turn if you think it's going to live.
You can block with it.
So if you cast this on 3 and it does effectively hold your opponent's like Robber of the Rich back or whatever, and then you exile it on turn 4, you're well on your way to just getting paid on having invested your mana in this thing.
Let's say you wrath the board.
I was just going to say, that's
that.
a really solid play pattern, right? Is you exile this, you play a land, you get the counter, you wrath, and you kind of win on the spot from there, don't you? Like, it's your opponent's going to have...
Seems like it.
They're going to have such a hard time not only continuing to commit pressure to the board, but outscaling your big creature and the card advantage that you're going to get when this thing comes back.
Let's say that, but let's assume, for the sake of talking it through, let's assume that we don't bring it back and just start winning the game. Let's say the game continues a bit. Say that we drew 3 cards off our Cosmina when it came back. Like, we played land and we played Fabled Passage and we brought it back. What are the odds that we have some land in our hand? Pretty good, right? We probably drew some land. Next upkeep, we can exile Kazima again and start charging
can
it
we?
again. Yes, we can.
Oh, dude, I did not think about that.
It can just keep...
That is messed up, bro.
Kazima adds, especially as something that might stick around through the game, it even adds to the ability to, sorry for the pun, try not to snicker, Arjuna, play with itself.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
if you have 2 of them, you can play Omen Keel on 1.
Yeah.
You can play Kazima on, or Omen Keel on 2. Kazima on 3, crew the Omen Keel. You can crew at instant speed. So on the upkeep trigger, before you exile Kazima, you can activate the Omen Keel again, and then exile Kazima, attack with the Omen Keel, and then the Omen Keel can chill until Kazima comes back in the future as well.
Here's another thing you can do. You can cast one Kazima, phase it out, then cast another Kazima, right? And as long as the 2 on the battlefield at the same time, it's cool. You're still getting paid on them.
Oh, yeah. Plus, they both gain from the landfall triggers.
Exactly.
If you want to, you can bring them both back at the same time. You will still draw all of the cards.
You will.
You'll legend rule one of them, but you'll draw all of the cards.
Yeah. But you could just have a nice little, like, little rotunda of Cosimas going on. You could have, like, 1 Omen Keel in play and 3 Cosimas just rotating in and out of exile.
For me, the only question on this card is, can we take turn 3 off to do it?
Yeah.
That's the only question I have.
Yeah, I mean, like, dies to removal. It's kind of rough on this.
But the window is so short.
It
like
is
their
short.
window is so small that it almost demands that they take the turn to kill it.
Just the front side of this card seems like incredibly powerful to me. And your opponent is going to feel so garbage, like having to point an Elspeth Conquers Death or something at this card, right?
If they don't kill it, it's like you got a Nissa Vital Force emblem for 3 mana.
Yeah.
If you remember that card from...
Yeah.
Where you just draw a card for every land you play. Yeah.
Yeah, this card seems like borderline busted to me. It's probably easy to overestimate like all of the good scenarios and to underestimate the bad scenarios, but I just think like if this is fitting into your deck's game plan, and if the Omen Keel ends up being a playable card, this just seems like a freaking slam dunk to me.
I just think this card and Fabled Passage are busted.
Yeah.
I think that's insane. And I don't mean because you draw 2 cards. I mean because you bring it back on your opponent's turn in combat in response to whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's draw cards and make a huge body for no mana investment.
Agreed.
Yeah,
agreed. I feel like if you expect the game to go long, this is just like the ultimate over the top, like go over the top card. I mean, it has to resolve, it has to stick, but
oh man, if both players get this thing cooking, like what a grind.
I know. Think about this, CGB. Like, think about you're in a control matchup and your opponent manages to stick one of these early and you didn't get one. You just lose on the spot, right?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't kill it, like I said, the window is really small.
Yeah.
Sublime Epiphany can counter the trigger.
The trigger, so that's good to know. Yeah.
No. But if they do, you just play another land.
And then it just, wait, is that how it works?
If you don't, return it to the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, draw X cards, or X is the number of Voyage counters on it. Yeah.
So if they counter
you just don't get the counter.
If they counter that, then that trigger goes on the stack, they cancel it, it doesn't return from exile, and then you just do it next time? Like next land?
The trigger goes on the stack. So you play a land and the trigger goes on the stack, and they have to choose whether or not to interact with it. Okay, if they choose not to, then you choose yes or no. If you choose yes, counter, nothing comes in the battlefield. If you choose no, straight to the battlefield. No opportunity to stop it.
That's so brutal, dude.
Yes, it is.
That's so brutal.
And again, the draw X cards is a part of that. There isn't another trigger to draw the cards. You can't stop it.
So the only way to stop this is Ashiok Ultimate. We did it. We did it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Note though that if you do that, you just get a 2 for 3.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, well, this card, I mean, I was excited about this card before I thought about all the possibilities. Now I'm just like doubly, triply excited about this card. Yeah, I think this card is gas.
It is a beautiful card in my world. So beautiful.
Yeah, and it potentially could be extremely busted, could be just unbelievably infuriating to play against. Okay, this next card, I think you will be... I'm sure you've at least considered this card. Gates of Istval. Land. Gates of Istval enters the battlefield tapped. You tap it to add 1 white mana, and you pay 2 white, blue. Tap, sacrifice Gates of Istval. You gain 2 life and draw 2 cards. Surely you must be interested in this card.
I'm not.
You're not?
Nope. I was not a Memorial to Genius guy.
Okay. Yeah.
I was much more into the castles. I was much more into just any other way to use the mana. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you need to be into this. And I think tap lands are a very big cost. I think the land space is really crowded between castles and temples and Fabled Passage. And like there's a lot of potential to do extra stuff with your lands. And there's also a lot of potential to play 3 straight tap lands and die.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
If I ran it, I would run 1.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to be running this and other tap lands. And it's true, it doesn't like proc your castles, it doesn't really do anything for you.
It's also amazing how just giving up a land, being down a land, it matters way later in the game than it should.
Yeah, it can matter, that's true. Maybe this is just a boomer card, you know? But I definitely think this looks like the most playable of the cycle to me so far.
Okay. I mean, I could live with that because I'm not impressed with them very much.
Yeah. I think that this card is good, but I agree with you. It might just not be as good as other lands / other things that you could be doing with your mana, etc., etc. Okay, there's the is it land in the cycle, Surtland Frostfire, or something. ETB's taps for red. You can pay 2 blue red, tap sacrifice this, scry 2, then it deals 2 damage to each creature. Activate this ability only time you can cast a sorcery. I mean, little 2 mana Wrath on your land, still not good enough?
I think this is the best one.
Yeah, you like this one? Okay.
There's a lot more like board impact, and I mean, it depends, right? Is anybody building a board with like 3 or 4 1/1s in the late game? It seems more like people are building boards with 3 or 4 4/4 flying vigilance in the late game.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still think this card has some potential. They see it coming, and the fact that it's a sorcery is pretty nerfed.
Yeah, sorcery sucks
pretty nerfed.
for sure. I agree. I mean, it's a powerful effect, and if you get to kill multiple things with this, you're going to feel pretty good about it. So, yeah, I don't know. I like that they're exploring... This is kind of like DFCs, where they're just exploring lands that do other things for you. Read this saga for us.
Nico Defys Destiny. 1 white-blue for an enchantment saga. 1. You gain 2 life for each foretold card you own in exile. 2. Add white and a blue. Spend this mana only to foretell cards or cast spells that have foretell. 3. Return target card with foretell from your graveyard to your hand. It's got life gain, mana cheat, and it replaces itself.
I don't know.
I think it's really lame that the card is called Defys Destiny, but it basically scripts itself that you have to play in such a perfect sequence as to have no destiny. Yeah.
This is like one of the weaker, in my opinion, one of the weaker sagas I've seen in this set so far.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, is this really worth it?
You have to foretell on turn 2, and you're going to spend turn 3 gaining 2 life and doing probably nothing else. I'm off it. I admit that your turn 4 is going to be sexy. You're going to play Behold the Multiverse, scry 2, draw 2, and you're going to cast Shatter the Sky in a perfect world, right? And then on chapter 3, you get back Behold the Multiverse, and you made a lot of mana and did a lot of things. But I just can't live in a world where I do nothing for that many turns.
Wait, what's Behold the Multiverse?
Glimmer of Genius with Foretell.
Oh, okay, right. We can cast Alron's Epiphany with this on turn 4, can't we?
Yes. You can make 2 birds and take an extra turn. Seems fair, considering you threw 2 turns in the garbage.
And then the next turn, you can get your Alron's Epiphany back.
No, it exiles itself.
Oh, it exiles itself. All right, yeah.
So on that play pattern, you get literally nothing back.
I'm off it. Yeah, I think this card's hot garbage. We have yet another saga here. Arnie Slays the Troll. Costs a red and a green. Very, very cheap saga. Target creature you control fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. That's the first chapter. Second chapter, add 1 red mana. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature you control. Chapter 3, you gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Yeah, I'm in for this card. Maybe you can't fit it into your deck, but like, worth 2 mana? Absolutely.
Ugh, nah.
You're not into this card?
Oh, so it's a fight, it's not a bite, and you don't get a +1/+1 counter like Domri's Ambush would give. So you have to outsize to be relevant, and you have to have a creature the next turn to gain the counters for that to be relevant. I mean, when's the last time you played with Domri's Ambush and the counter wasn't relevant? Like, that, it's one of the key parts of the card to make sure you kill what you need to kill.
I don't know, man. I think in a format with like a bunch of Lovestruck Beasts and stuff, like...
So this is your turn 4 with a Lovestruck Beast? Like, you have the Henge, you have Embercleave, you have you have Primal Might.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I'm not disputing that this card might not fit into your deck. I just think that, like, I think it's worth 2 mana. That's what I'm giving you with this card. Because I'm with you. Like, I don't I don't quite see where this fits in the current meta. Like, I don't know that you can find space in your deck to play this. You probably just have some higher impact things to be doing. And Primal Might is probably just a better card than this.
I think First I Row in Games is a better card than this, if I'm being honest.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that this, I think this card is decent. If you kill your opponent's creature and then it ramps you and you get 2+1/+1 counters, gas, dude. What a great card.
Sure. I'm off this one.
Okay.
Like, I don't think this one is even close. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe it's just not good enough for standard.
Finn the Fangbearer is 1 and a green for a 1/3 Death Touch human warrior that is legendary. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gains 2 poison counters.
Oh,
a player with 10
snap.
or more poison counters loses the game.
Damn, poison is back. Had no idea.
There you go.
Wow.
How about that?
Wow.
So, what do you think of Death Touch Tribal for the purpose of poison?
I mean, poison has proved itself to be a strong mechanic when the creatures get through and do the thing. So here's the thing. It's locked in at 2 per hit, no matter how much damage you do. So you need to get 5 hits in with a Death Touch creature to seal the deal.
In theory, yep.
Unless you have Vorinclex.
Yes, that is a big one.
But I kind of feel like if you have Vorinclex in play, you might have better things to be doing than hitting your opponents with random Death Touch creatures.
Okay, do you remember the saga? Oh my gosh.
Hold
on, I want to say the name.
Get Death Touch until end of turn? Yeah.
The saga Binding of the Old Gods is 2 and a black and a green to destroy target non-land permanent. Chapter 2 searches for a land. And Chapter 3 is creatures you control gain Death Touch until end of turn. Conveniently, it ramps you into Vorinclex and gives your creatures Death Touch. That's that Chapter 3. All my creatures gain Death Touch. I play Vorinclex. I attack. That's scary. That could kill you out of nowhere.
This is no Inkmoth Nexus. That's for sure.
It's true. I mean, this card is very conditional, and if it dies, of course, nothing happens. But I think it's just cool that they brought poison counters back without the infectability, and it makes some of the Death Touch stuff seem more relevant. And now we have to think about the card, because it's also a cheap legend, and there's a lot of Legends Matter stuff going on.
It's true. It's also, blocks Lovestruck Beast, doesn't die to Bone Crusher.
It's true.
Boy, rogues might really not like for you to resolve this against them, right?
Rogues?
Yeah, rogues.
Why?
Okay, so think about this. The only card in their deck which can profitably block this thing is the 1-drop. Why do I keep forgetting the name of that thing?
Thieves Guild Enforcer.
The Thieves Guild Enforcer, right? So the Thieves Guild Enforcer can block and trade with this. Most of their other stuff can't until later in the game. The Crab doesn't block it. So imagine you're playing Rogues, your opponent just plays this on turn 2. Now, okay, Rogues plays a fair amount of removal, so fair. They could just kill it, but they could just kill any of your creatures, right? But if they don't, they can't really block this thing, and it's just going to give them 2 poison counters a turn. Okay, look. I'm not saying this is any better of a scenario than the one that you just outlined with the saga, but it's just something.
You're just excited about a 2-mana play that makes rogues kill it. Okay, I mean, sure. I think that anybody who's played enough Standard on Arena knows that rogue starts the game with 3 Drown and a Lox in their opening hand, but
yeah,
okay.
No, it's true. I mean, what's good against rogues? Whatever. All right, next card needs to be translated. So this is some kind of big elephant creature, affectionately dubbed Big Stabby by Scryfall. So this is 3 green, 5 mana for a creature elephant at Mythic. So this is we're expecting this to be Elder Gargaroth of the set. This thing has Trample. Whenever a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. So this has a Shaper's Sanctuary stapled to it. And you can cast it for 2 green if you foretold it on a previous turn. Okay, just off the dome, better or worse than Elder Gargaroth?
For 5 mana, I think it's worse.
Agree.
It's definitely interesting that it's whenever a permanent you control, not just Battle Mammoth here.
Yep. So this is definitely first in line for the removal spell.
I suppose it forces their hand. If you have something else that you want to be around, this is what they have to deal with. It also says ability, which is very important. They got away from saying spell and ability for a while. It was just spell, and then Elspeth Conquers Death just tore everything that had that text to pieces.
Yeah, so the only way for them to deal with this without you drawing a card is A, counter it, or B, do some kind of wrath or non-targeted effect that kills it.
I think so, yeah.
I guess sacrifice can also hit it.
Death touch creature.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Death touch. But in general, annoying to have to deal with and difficult to deal with profitably.
I'm trying to think of what the deck is that doesn't want to play anything on turn 2 to get this on turn 4, and then like drawing a card when it eats the 2 mana spell from your opponent anyway. Like the Heartless Act is the thing that you wanted, but you gave up 2 mana to do it. See, that just doesn't sound good, because it feels to me that if you're going to go toe-to-toe with somebody who's removing your stuff, you need to pressure them throughout the game.
Yeah.
It's a cool card. I'm not... Why am I not excited?
Okay, so this doesn't have the sideboard ability of Elder Gargaroth. Elder Gargaroth is just like a nice... It's like nice against aggro, it's great against mono red, it's good against various aggro-y creature decks, especially ones like Gruul that might not have any single card in their deck that just kills it. And it gains you life, which can be really relevant when you're playing your 5 mana card. So this has none of the benefits of the Elder Gargaroth, so it's just a totally different threat. It's also kind of rough that... So one of the nice things about Shaper's Sanctuary, which is basically that first ability on an enchantment, is that it costs 1 green mana, so you play it before you play any of your creatures, and then for the rest of the game, your opponent is in this awkward calculus where they don't want to point their kill stuff at your creatures if they can help it. So this is kind of showing up to the party late. Like, your opponent has already had a chance to kill every other creature you played before this. This is probably the top of your curve. So the effect essentially protects the elephant. Now, I mean, we all know that boards can get clogged. We all know that, for example, Gruul has shown us that, like, they might end up with a bunch of creatures on the board. They might end up with 1 or more innkeepers in play. If you have this elephant down and your opponent has to let you draw a card every time they kill your innkeeper, that's going to feel pretty bad for them. So it's not that I can't assemble scenarios in which this card is very annoying. It's priced to move. I mean, it's a fairly big creature. It has trample. I like all of that. It doesn't have vigilance, and it doesn't have reach, which are 2 things the Gargaroth has somehow. So in the end, I'm still kind of thinking this probably isn't as good as the Gargaroth, but it does die to Doomblade a lot better than the Gargaroth does.
I think the play pattern with this that gets me excited is that if you foretell it or you play it on turn 6 or 7 and you have available the Ranger's Guile type card, like just blow them out when they do have to go to kill it. I think what scares me the most is that if you're in a green mirror, then the Great Henge and Embercleave go way over the top of this card. Like, who cares if you drew a card or played a 6/5 if either of those things are going on for the opponent? So you have to be able to spar with that, which means you probably need your own of those cards or ways to deal with them. So I think this card is interesting. It does make me want to play like hexproof or counter type effects to really punish the opponent so that you draw multiple cards from it instead of one. Kind of the Niv Mizzet conundrum where you get Niv Mizzet down, then you start the battle over Niv Mizzet and you draw a bunch of cards because of the battle.
Supposing we have like a Teema deck with like this and the gold span dragon or whatever, and we're playing like big threats that we're taxing our opponent to deal with.
Yeah, there you go.
That could be kind of fun.
It could be.
I don't know if
I just think
good.
it's worse. I think it's worse than current Gruul is the problem in my head.
That's kind of what I'm
a little
thinking
slower.
too. Yeah.
That might be post-rotation Gruul for sure.
I think that this card is less versatile than Elder Gargaroth, which is a point against it. Imagine if this card just cost the foretell cost. Like, imagine if this was just 2 green for the card. Like, how good would it be?
I think it'd be very good, but I don't know.
It's like, would it be better than Questing
situational,
Beast?
right? I think so, but I'm not positive. It's so situational.
It is.
Who went first? What's the rest of the cards like?
This is a very, very hard card to evaluate. So I guess it all depends on, like, how does the stat line up with the format? What's the plan of your deck, etc., etc., etc. Interesting though. Interesting card.
Yeah.
Powerful card. No questions. Powerful card.
All right. We don't have the full translation, so we're going to call this one Horrible Encounter. 2 black sorcery. Creatures that aren't the creature type of your choice get -3/-3 until end of turn.
So it's kind of like a different take on Witch's Vengeance.
Yep, and a bit of a nerfed Languish, but if you're tribal, it dodges your tribe. So back in my duels days, I always made fun of people who put Languish in their elf decks. Because it was actually a pretty normal thing to do. It was a small card pool. It was only a third of Magic Origins was that game for a period of time. And people would run elf decks with Languish in it because elves was so popular. They're like, well, if you're in the mirror, you have Languish. But this is like the Languish you can put in your elf deck that doesn't seem bad. Sideboard?
Sideboard, for sure. Kills everything in rogues. It's nice. Except for Zareth, I guess.
Yeah, if they even run that, yeah. Just as long as you don't name rogue, but you could run this in rogues against other tribal decks,
right, yeah,
and name rogues. That's really good. You might lose a crab here and there, but you'll get it back.
Okay, so how good is it against the rest of the creature decks in the format? Probably not that good against Gruul. Maybe. Maybe. I mean,
it's good against everything but questing, but Lovestruck Beast.
Yep,
yeah,
so maybe that's enough.
Critter.
Maybe that's enough.
Yeah.
Is it better than Extinction Event?
Not in a deck that doesn't have creatures. It's better than Extinction Event in a deck that wants to play a creature on turn 1, 2, and 3, and then set up a way to win.
So yeah, if there's any kind of low to the ground elves or like warrior aggro deck or whatever, this card could be very good.
Yeah, rogues, clerics is kind of striking me as interesting because they usually don't have a good way to keep the board from getting ugly. Warriors, there's a lot of things you can do with this. I think it's going to be worth trying. Spirits, we'll see. I don't remember black spirits, but who knows?
Yeah, it could be good against spirits, I guess. Yeah, okay. It's a card in the format. It probably shows up somewhere. These cards tend to at some point. Okay, so we have this rare angel here. It is codenamed Glorious Protector. We don't actually know what it's called, but it is 2 white for a creature, angel, cleric, 3/4, flash flying. So it's what that flash angel you were referring to earlier. When this card enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield, and you can foretell this for 2 and a white. Interesting card.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like you have plans for this card, so I'm gonna let CGB go.
It's awesome, right? It's multiple blinks on one card, but even if you blink one thing with it, you're probably doing pretty good. Blink a Skyclave Apparition. Blink a Baron Tolarian Archmage. Blink a Charming Prince. Just blink something that gives you a little bit of value. And when this leaves the battlefield, you get it back and you trigger your Enter the Battlefield ability again. And you can blink this with Yorion.
Yeah, it's a combo with Yorion. Is it a combo with anything else?
When it comes back, you exile the Yorion.
Right.
So the Yorion comes back after this dies. So if the opponent does anything to it, you Yorion loop again. That's crazy.
So let's just say like you did like turn 2 Omen of the Sea or the Tome, turn 3 Apparition, turn 4 you exile both of those things.
You can't exile enchantments. That's the biggest problem with it. It's only non-angel creatures.
Oh, okay, non-angel creatures. So it's just the Apparition, I guess. Apparition and Yorion.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to bring back Charming Prince, or if there's any good other 2 and 3 mana blinkable cards.
Like, that's...
You don't seem impressed.
No, I'm not.
Did you play with Restoration Angel?
No, I didn't.
Really? You didn't?
No.
Okay, I lived the Restoration Angel.
It was before my time.
Life.
So, did Resto have this ability?
No.
It was a blink,
the big difference,
wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, the big difference with Resto was that it didn't stay exiled. Yeah.
So we need to I just really need for you to stress that you don't get the stuff back until this leaves the battlefield. So this isn't a blink. This is like what is this? This is like a layaway.
Yeah, you banishing lit your own stuff.
Right. So it's not that I can't think about scenarios in which this would be good, but I think that conditionality makes it a lot worse than just a blink.
I don't know. You have so much control over it. It has flash. Like, you can do it in response to removal. You can do it in response to a board wipe. You can do it after blocking is declared. Like, there's so many ways you can do it. And if you're playing the deck with Thassa and Yorion or a sweeper of your own that can kill it, then you kind of dictate where and how the value moves, in my opinion.
Yeah, the creature clause is kind of tough. It has to be creatures. I do like that play pattern you said, like, for example, you know, you played some white weenies, you're getting in there. On the turn, your opponent's wrathing, you're flashing this in and protecting the team, kind of a thing. That's something.
But that's one of the utility things about it that's nice. But I mean, we don't want to be using it as that. That's just like a heroic intervention, and we kind of talked about the drawbacks of that. But I mean, you don't have to exile anything. You can just play this and beat down. You can just play this in ambush.
Yeah, it's true.
Like those things matter a lot.
Yeah, it's a 4-drop, you know.
You seem completely unimpressed.
I have to.
I'm going to destroy you with this card.
Okay,
and it's not going to be close.
Prove me wrong. Do it.
You're going to get wrecked. Remember the Settle the Wreckage effect?
Yes.
Dude, anything with 3 toughness or less has to now go through the Settle the Wreckage effect with this card.
I mean, I agree. Nothing that you said is like wrong or bad, all right? I just I don't know how much space we have in our aggressive decks for like these 4 like this is no Archangel Avacyn, right?
It might be better.
Oh, come off it. Come off it. Oh man.
You haven't played enough with a card like this.
No, I guess I haven't. I'm open to being wrong, but this doesn't immediately impress me. No, it doesn't.
We didn't even talk about the foretell. Like, if you foretell a card on turn 2 and then just pass with 3 open, can they really attack into this? It's such a blowout waiting to happen if they don't have like the perfect instant speed, deal 4 damage removal.
Are you playing this in the same deck that you're playing that 1 white flash detention dude?
I might.
Just like mono flash get 'em cards.
That's not a terrible idea either, because if you exile that and if you exile that, you give them back the creature that you originally exiled, but maybe now you wrath the board or target it with an ECD and you freed your creature.
How good is this with Nyambi?
That's a good question. I don't think it's particularly great, because I don't think that Nyambi, let's see. If you put the trigger on the stack, I'm trying to think of tricks with it that I don't think I'm going to get there, but I think Nyambi's just kind of bad. Really bad, in my opinion.
Baron?
Yeah, Baron was something that I mentioned earlier on, and that is pretty sweet. Yeah.
All right. I'll be interested to see what you do with this card, CGB. And maybe I will end up respecting it.
We will see.
Okay. Litjara Mirror Lake. ETB's tapped. Taps for a blue. It is a land. 2 green, green, blue. Tap and sacrifice Litjara Mirror Lake. Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Oh, that seems pretty gas to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The sorcery part makes me cringe.
Yeah, the sorcery part, it kind of sucks on all these cards.
It's not on all of them. There are a lot of them without
I guess
it.
the blue one doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, there are several that don't say that, but the ones that do, it kind of throws me sometimes. Like this one in particular would be really cool.
It would be cool.
As an instant.
Yeah. I like it. Am I going to play it? I don't know, but I just like it. It tickles me.
I wonder what you plan to copy. What's the bee's knees to target with the Mirror Lake?
Probably like an expensive card, like a
yeah.
like the elephant we just read.
Okay, two elephants.
Yeah.
Go ahead, target my stuff.
Yeah, right? Come at me, bro.
Come at us.
Come at me.
Elder Gargaroth.
Taste Tusk. I don't know, man. I'm reaching.
You are.
Okay. Take us into this saga.
Ascent of the Worthy is 1 white and black. Enchantment Saga. Chapters 1 and 2 are the same. So, choose a creature you control until your next turn. All damage that would be dealt to creatures you control is dealt to that creature instead. And then you do it again.
Wow.
And then Chapter 3 is return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a flying counter on it. That creature is an angel warrior in addition to its other types.
Dude, this card is weird.
On curve, it's bizarre, right? Because what is the 2-drop that you're going to redirect all damage to? The 06 Ox!
We did it.
Of course.
We really did it.
Yeah, your 04 from Birth of Meletus is an option.
That's true.
Like, what are you
But you're
even
not
doing
like curving that
redirecting
into
damage?
this and profiting.
I mean, you could, but what are we doing here?
Yeah. What damage is happening?
This card is weird because it's not a turn 3 card at all.
No, it's really not. Is this a combo with Tor Elf?
What? Tor Elf.
The excess damage, dude?
Come on.
Because think about it. If it's all damage is redirected to that one creature, it's going to be a lot of overkill, right?
But it's not. It's non-combat, right?
Yeah, non-combat. So it has to be non-combat, but I don't know, man. I'm just this card is so weird. Like I'm tempted to just completely write it off, but I'll be fully honest. I haven't thought through all of the various possibilities, but is this going to consistently do anything for anyone? Doesn't your opponent just play around this?
I think I've got nothing, to be honest. There is some Yorian nonsense here where you can just keep resetting it, and then if it ever hits Chapter 3, you get another Yorian anyway.
This is a certain kind of this doesn't read your creatures get indestructible until end of turn. However, you could definitely just make your doggo take the fall or whatever, right? So let's say you're playing some kind of an aggro deck, a white weenie deck that doesn't exist and may not exist while this card is in standard. But let's say that you curved out, you have a nice curve, and you just want to keep smashing your opponent's face. And this card is going to make it awkward for them to declare blocks because, you can just... You know what I mean? You can redirect all of that combat damage to a single creature.
Okay, if you have an active Heliod, you can just attack every turn and not care how they block.
Totally. That's a very good point because it's indestructible.
For 2 turns in a row, yeah.
It does have to be animated. Yeah,
there.
It has to be animated, right. But this helps animate it.
A Seasoned Hollowblade.
Seasoned Hollowblade's a good example. Yep.
Discard a card and just take all of the damage for a couple of turns in a row.
Right. So I think that's the trick with this card, is that you're probably just trying to get into the red zone and punish your opponent for blocking.
I mean, if there's that much, if red is that big a part of the format, then I suppose, because it's terrible against exile effects, it's terrible against Ugin.
Yeah.
Yeah, It's an interesting card.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think of that, it takes all the damage, including the combat damage creatures deal to your creatures.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of wild.
It's something. This is one of those cards where, like, I don't necessarily think it deserves a spot in your deck. But
yeah, it's probably just bad.
I think other cards in this spot are better. Wouldn't you rather just Anthem instead?
I'm done. My brain doesn't work with this card.
All right. Yeah, I don't think this card's particularly good. You spoke about the Ox, so let's mention Colossal Plow. It's also, CGB's head's in his hands.
No, there's got to be a joke about the Colossal Plow.
Yes.
As the name of a card.
There have been many off-color jokes about Colossal Plow. Yes, there have been. So we're just going to leave that where it is. It's a Colossal Plow. It costs 2 colorless mana. It's a 6/3 artifact vehicle at uncommon. Whenever Colossal Plow attacks, add 3 white mana and you gain 3 life. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. And the crucial part of this card is that it crews for 6. So, made for each other. So you put this in the deck with your Ox. You swing for 6 on turn. I guess it's 4. And then you profit.
3.
No, it has to be...
You play this on 2, you play the Ox on 3, right?
Oh, that's right. And you crew it immediately. Okay. Yep. So...
And you have 4 mana to use.
You add a bunch of mana. You gain some
turn.
life. Sure.
It can also be crewed by 2 Hollow Blades.
You did it. I mean, someone's going to kill me on the ladder with this deck.
And it's when it is when you attack that you get the mana and the life, not when you deal damage.
Right, so even if it dies...
I guess they could kill it before combat and you feel terrible. Ugh. Oh, I'm already feeling... The feels bads are already hitting me. I can't imagine this card being a regular player, but it does have the features of some really good cards. Like free mana is a thing and it's low cost, but it's not low cost because you have to put a lot of tapping of creatures into this, and I have trouble picturing this competitively, but it's got weird abilities and it's got features of cards that could be good, so I guess keep an eye on it. I might get surprised by this someday.
You know, this isn't in standard anymore, but if you animate this with Khan, you're kind of doing it, aren't you?
I guess so. I give that okay.
Low-key
I mean,
doing it.
You can foretell the mammoth and play the mammoth on turn 4 and animate this and get in there, and if they target it, you draw a card.
Yeah, Crew 6 is just so prohibitive.
I don't know. There's a 3-mana 6/6 with Death Touch in the format.
It's true. I don't know, man. This is one of those cards that like looks really bad, and then it like shows up somewhere, has its fun in the sun, just plows somebody real good.
Please, no plow jokes. Please, no.
All right. Let's move on here. Take us into Arnie Brokenbrow.
2 and a red for a 3/3 legendary creature, human berserker with haste and boast. 1 colorless mana. You may change Arnie Broken Brows base power.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Arnie Broken Bows. If I say it in a goofy voice, I think I'm more likely to get it right. Arnie Broken Bows.
Broken Bow.
He's broken bows, mate. Anyway, base power is to 1 plus the greatest power among other creatures you control until end of turn. I'm gonna try to just. So it's a 3/3 haste, and while it's attacking, if you pay 1, if you have a 6/6 in play, Arnie Broken Bow becomes a 7/3. Just as an example. Not what's going to happen every time, just an example.
If you had a plow in play and you animated it.
Well, it would have to be crude already. Good luck. I'm thinking more of Annex Hardened in the Forge.
Yeah. The problem is that they sit at the same spot on the curve.
Not exactly. This is a 4-drop.
Okay, I see what you're getting at.
Haste and activate at the same turn. So in that world, if like you give a pip to your Annex, so if you have another creature in play, this is a 5/3. with haste for 4. Is that good enough? No, I don't think so. So, I mean, I'm not turned, like, this card doesn't turn me on like a Colossal Plowing.
Oh, we're haunted. We're haunted. Yeah, this card suffers, for me, this card suffers from not as good as Anax, and how many 3-drops do you want to run in your red aggressive deck? Those are the hang-ups that I have. Yeah. I also feel like if you call this a 4-drop, like, you'd much rather just be dropping Torbran. So it's not that I don't think this card is like something, but it just seems worse than the alternatives.
I really do agree. There's some combo-y stuff you can do with like Rimrock Knights and get extra power out of nowhere, but I don't think this is good enough.
Okay, note this is a Berserker, so if your deck is getting off on Berserkers, then maybe this card gets better. But yeah, I'm taking the under on this, absolutely. This is a card where it's going to fill up the rare slot in my open packs, and I'm going to be pissed. Okay, this card is interesting. This might be the Innkeeper for Snow. Frost Augur, 1 blue mana, Snow creature, human wizard, 1/2 at uncommon. You can tap 1 snow mana, pay 1 snow mana, and tap this. Look at the top card of your library. If it's a snow card, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. So in a dedicated snow deck, this is basically tap 1 mana, tap this every turn, draw a card.
Is that good?
Is it?
It's okay.
It's pretty good. It's not bad.
It's pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah, the Bone Crusher Giant really wants to hit it.
It's true.
Yeah. So it is like one of those remove or die things. I think the dangers, the problem I have with it is, can you fill your snow deck with enough snow permanents and spells, you know?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of good ones. I'm not sure if I've seen enough.
Like Snow Tribal, like your entire 60 is snow?
As much as possible, because activating this and whiffing sucks.
It does suck, yeah.
But, I mean, think of this card with the Jon Snow card
baby.
that untaps it, right?
Twice a turn.
So is there enough to make a snow permanent deck? I'm already off it because none of the sagas are snow sagas. So I'm just like, not interested in brewing this deck. But
why didn't they make snow sagas? I didn't even think about that.
There might be enough, though. I mean, I'm having trouble thinking of all the potential like snow cards to put in the deck.
Right. I mean, they are printing a lot of snow cards. Like, they're definitely giving snow support in this set. Here's one of the problems. I feel like it's probably unlikely that they're going to print snow in another standard set anytime soon.
It snowed a lot in the Harry Potter movies, and that's where we're going next.
Maybe they're going to give us another one. I'm skeptical, right? I think that this might be a cannibalized mechanic, right? This might be a one and done, kind of like the adventures were.
We'll see.
We might be looking at our version of that. Here's another thing that interests me. I've noticed a lot of these snow cards are uncommon, and I'm wondering if the snow deck is like the cycling or the gates deck of this standard, right? Where they give us a deck with a bunch of uncommons. Now, cycling, of course, was good, was very competitive. But the gates deck was like borderline competitive. And I'm wondering if this is like the budget competitive deck of this cycle.
Maybe, but the rares look really good.
The rares do look pretty good.
The snow gods look really good.
Yeah. No, you're right. Well, I think Frost Augur is definitely on the list of cards to try in the snow deck. And I don't know, man. This could just be pay a mana, draw a card for the rest of the game kind of a card. And like, imagine you're a snow deck playing against control, and you resolve this on turn 1. And your control opponent is like, I need to kill that immediately, right?
Yeah, thanks, I hate it.
Yeah. They might. I mean, if they can't answer it on turn 1, you're already up a card. Taste it. And then if you follow it up with another Frost Augur, your opponent might just quit on the spot.
Unless there aren't enough good snow cards.
It's true.
Which case it's like, go ahead. Look for them. At least you're not drawing cards like Negate that I worry about.
Yeah, could be. So the real question is this closer to an innkeeper or is this closer to just some random draft card? And I guess time will tell. All right, we're almost there, CGB. Next, all right, read this Rakdos card for us.
Well, I want to tell you, earlier today, after finishing my stream, I rated the one and only most watched Magic player in the world right now, Crokies. And he had a list in front of him, and he was like, CGB, have you seen this card? And he was the one who showed me this card. He was like, look at this. And I was like, oh yeah. This is Immerstrum Predator. 2 black-red creature, vampire dragon.
Which, let's stop there. Have we ever had a vampire dragon before?
Yes, there is literally a card called Vampiric Dragon.
Oh, hilarious. Okay.
Yeah, it's an 8 mana unplayable 5/5.
Okay, well there you go.
Anyway, Vampire Dragon, power and toughness 3/3, flying. Whenever this card becomes tapped, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard and put a +1/+1 counter on Immerstrum Predator. Immerstrum. No, there's not another syllable. Immerstrum, I think. Sacrifice another creature. The Predator gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. So this card is, on its face, a 3 mana 3/3 flyer is not very exciting. You definitely need to play it in a creature deck. It needs to have fodder, because if you can sacrifice a creature to it to give it indestructible, every time you do that, you exile up to 1. So it doesn't need a target, but up to 1 card from a graveyard, and you get a +1/+1 counter on it, and it can be from any graveyard. So against rogues, you can eat your graveyard. Against the opponents, you can eat the opponent's graveyard if you need to eat their graveyard, against Crocs or whatever. So you can tap it to sacrifice a creature at will. So if you get paid when a creature dies, awesome. Having an open-ended sacrifice outlet, like we've seen how good that is from Woestrider and Witch's Oven. That just turns off adventure creatures like Bone Crusher Giant because they can't hit what they want to hit. So that is not to be underestimated. And the fact that you can also just attack with this. And when it becomes tapped, you exile, you get the +1/+1 counter. So it's a 4/4 on the offensive. And if it gets into combat, you can sacrifice a creature to give it indestructible. And you can just keep going. You can survive board wipes. It's got evasion. It seems like a really good card for the Rakdos deck.
Yeah, it seems like a good card. It has to be the right card for the deck. We need like a Sack Matters deck, which, that such a thing has existed before. It costing 4 mana is quite a lot worse than costing 3 mana, which Woestrider does. This plays quite well with Woestrider. Like, you get the free goat. Next turn you can sack it to keep this alive. That's pretty clean.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm feeling it. This could have like more Korvold to it than we realize.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I love the dragonness of it because there might be some cool things you can do having some kind of a dragon. I think the fail case for this is just so much exile, right? Skyclave Apparition, Elspeth Conquers Death. But the good news is those cards are white. People say white is terrible. If white isn't terrible, this card has problems. If white remains terrible and everything's about damage and Gruul and Rakdos and things like that, this card is probably really good.
Yeah, no, you are right. This is in the worst spot against the white decks in that it's a 4 mana card that the Apparition can exile, and it's a 4 mana card which Elspeth Conquers Death can exile. So if you get caught in that like squeeze, this card's gonna feel real bad. But I agree, like, blot it out, not that big of a deal.
And you just have in matchups where things are dying and they can't kill it, it's just a huge flying threat that grows and hates on graveyard.
Yeah, decent against rogues too, isn't it?
It's decent. I wouldn't say
It's not great.
incredible, but it's really hard for them to deal with if you have 2 creatures on the board. If you can keep fodder on the board, that's going to be the other tricky part with this card. Goes really well with Timuret Calls the Dead, you know?
Right.
Just curves. Ooh, that curve is right there.
Yeah. It's just like incidental, but you attack your opponent with this, you exile something from your graveyard. That's one less card that the Rogues deck has in your graveyard on you.
And don't forget, you don't have to attack with it to use the ability. It's an open-ended sacrifice outlet. So this with the Crowan War and Claim the Firstborn can just sack their creature right away.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm going to give pretty good on this one.
If I understand this correctly, you can, let's see, you can sacrifice the creature you stole from the opponent. It hits their graveyard, then exile it to gain the +1/+1 counter.
Oh, right, because you use that to pay a cost. Yeah, that would be gas. I'm down.
There you go. I'm into it.
All right, cool. Perhaps the kind of card that will put Claim the Firstborn back on the map in Standard. Next card, the Raven's Warning. 1 blue, white. Saga. At rare. First chapter, create a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying. You gain 2 life. Chapter 2, whenever one or more creatures you control with flying deal combat damage to a player this turn, look at that player's hand and draw a card. 3, you may put a card you own from outside the game on top of your library. This is a meatball, dude. This is a meatball. Okay, a few things I want to point out about this. Second chapter is 1 or more, so you only get maximum 1 card off of the second chapter, so that's the first thing to remember. That makes this a little worse.
Yeah.
So let's kind of stack this up, CGB. If you get to make a blue flying creature token and gain 2 life on the first chapter, and then draw a card off the second chapter, and, you know, looking at your opponent's hand is not nothing, and then you get to just wish for whatever you want and put it on top of your library for the third chapter. If all of those 3 things go off, that sounds pretty worth 3 mana, right?
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
I love, for some reason, it's the looking at the opponent's hand that I think is going to be the most tilting.
Yeah, it's going to be surprisingly good because you get it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, so this is why it's so good in particular, is that you're looking at your opponent's hand to see what they have so that you can make your decision about what you put on the top of your library, right? So that's the thing. It's kind of like it gives you that extra information. I mean, this is going to be great against rogues because they can try to mill that card off the top of your library. But if you're playing against rogues and you anticipate that, you could get some kind of escape card or some kind of graveyard card from your sideboard. And now who's the sucker?
That's pretty slick to get an escape card, yeah.
Right?
I'm always into best of 1 ways to access the outside the game sideboard. It's always very fun. I know you like that too.
I am a fan. And I mean, wishing is powerful, and granted, this isn't giving you, like, you don't get card advantage from that part of it, but stacking the top of your deck with the best wish card from your sideboard for whatever turn you're on is still pretty gas. So, as a card in a vacuum, I'm way into this card. I love the art, I love the flavor, I think it's powerful, I think it's really cool. The real challenge is just, like, what deck does this actually fit into, because that's what I'm not sure about.
Not how I want to spend an early turn.
Yeah.
Making a 1/1 and gaining 2 life. But
exactly.
In a lot of situations where you're under fire and you're under pressure to keep up with the board, and in blue and white in particular, not holding up counter magic can get you in trouble. So it's not a traditional control deck. Is a Dance of the Manse deck into something like this? I feel like Elspeth's Nightmare is a lot better. I don't know. It is interesting that you could have a wish board that included Dance of the Manse and go get Dance of the Manse and put it on top of your deck when this is gone.
So here's the thing, is that Fae of Wishes the granted is so expensive, and it's a great card. I'm not dissing Fae of Wishes. I love that card. I've played so many Fae of Wishes in my life. But, like, getting the wish board effect at cheaper cost And also, like, being able to get it a little bit later in the game without having to pay for it later in the game is kind of sick, right? So this could set you up to cast, like, a really impactful, like, another saga, like I don't know, something like a Kiarabes the Sea God, or just, like, some big planeswalker or something on a later turn of the game. So that could be pretty gas.
Yeah.
Not particularly good if you need, like, a Wrath from your board, but you still might get a Wrath with this. If you're anticipating that.
You get 2 life, you get a blocker. Maybe it's not that bad either.
Maybe it's not that bad.
There is something kind of nice to spending 0 mana for the effect of putting it on top of your deck. If you have an Opt, or if you have a Shard token from Nico, or you have a Maze Mind Tome.
Exactly.
You can draw at the same turn. And it is kind of interesting that the cards you would fetch would be the cards that are normally clunky in your deck. You're going to have 5 or 6 mana if you're curving out well, and you get to draw your 5 or 6 mana card when you have 5 or 6 mana, not earlier in the game when it wrecks you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty cool.
Yep. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Plays well with the Orion.
Kind of.
Think about this. You blink this, and then the next turn you attack with the Orion and draw a card.
Okay.
I mean, it's not the most.
You got me.
It's not the most epic thing that ever happened, but it's kind of cool, right?
I mean, it might be better than Omen of the Sun.
Might
I don't
be.
know.
Might be.
I don't know.
Honestly, I don't know how much of my bias against this card is just that I like it. It doesn't immediately slot into a deck, doesn't immediately seem powerful enough to play, but I just really like it.
Yeah, my Saga's Tribal is gonna love it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll try it. I'll put this in a deck. I'll try it out. It might be gas.
Yes, let's try it.
All right, the final card we will read. Oh my gosh, it's been quite a weekend, CGB. So,
Dude, we crushed it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so the final card. Why don't you take it away for us, Cosmos Elixir?
4 colorless mana, artifact. At the beginning of your end step, draw a card if your life total is greater than your starting life total. Otherwise, you gain 2 life. What do you think?
I'm struggling to see this one be playable. Do you play this in your life gain deck? Is this a curve topper in your life gain deck?
I mean, the fact that it's on your end step and not your upkeep is a big deal because
nice. Yep.
9 out of 10 times it's going to replace itself, and
Yep.
the control opponent has to remove it. I think it's a sideboard card against control.
Yeah,
and
that's a good point.
yeah, because obviously if the opponent can attack you and just keep you off this, gaining 2 life sounds good, but isn't particularly worth 4 mana. Yeah. You need the life gain to trigger something, and I'm not talking about a Hallowed Priest, some of Johnny's Pridemate replacement. You need something better than that, like Heliod maybe. I wouldn't play this because my life gain decks are aggressive. I just want the opponent dead. So I don't think this is much of a card, to be honest. But there are people who are going to really enjoy this card. I'm glad they have it. Have fun. Go forth and get your triggers in your card draw.
Do you think that there are certain matchups, like the control matchup you were talking about before, where you're going to play this and your control opponent is going to be like, wow, that's Howling Mine?
It would have to stick to the battlefield.
Yeah.
I would hate it if this hit the board and stuck to the board after an extinction event out of a blue-black control deck, because they have a hard time removing something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, this could be like a neat little sideboard juke against certain decks.
Yeah, what you don't want it to do, you don't want it to be 4 mana, draw a card, and then get ECD or Skyclaved, something that the opponent can do and keep, the 1-for-1 parity.
Yeah.
Right? Because all you did was spend 4 mana to draw a card. That's not very good. If it sticks to the battlefield for multiple turns and the opponent can't remove it and you're drawing 2 cards a turn, then yeah, the extinction event decks might hate that.
Right. And it doesn't die to Ugin. Yeah, this is all sounding like a very niche card.
It is.
Here's the thing, man. Like, is this better than Maze Mind Tome?
No.
Doesn't Maze Mind Tome kind of embarrass this card?
The cards are free so that you can use all your mana to keep the pressure on. I think Maze Mind Tome embarrasses this in everything but an aggressive life gain deck in the specific matchup I mentioned.
Yeah.
So Like, no, like, this is still better than Maze Mind Tome in the niche that we already talked about.
Right, okay. I feel like this is a card that would have been broken in half in 2010 Magic in certain formats in the past. But I just feel like these days, you look at a card that draws you a card every turn and you're kind of like, meh. That's okay, right? Drawing a free card every turn is okay. We expect more from our cards these days. It wouldn't surprise me if they printed this card and it just had when this card enters the battlefield, draw a card.
As a person who played a lot of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria today, and saw my opponent still outclass it, yes, I agree.
Yeah, it's just like, it's good, but it's nothing special in this era of Magic. So, yeah, color me a big skeptic on this one. Listeners, take the under on this one.
I mean, if you want to play Life Gain Tribal, you already know. This is what I say to the people who like get excited about these cards. You already know if you are this person. You don't need our opinion. Like, for just overrule us and go have fun.
Yeah, put one of these in your deck. If you're gonna play it, start with one.
Man, you can't tell Life Game players how to live their life.
You can't tell them what to do. Who am I kidding? That concludes this session of reading the spoilers. Oh my goodness, that was a lot of cards. And this set continues to look complicated and interesting and have just an unbelievable amount of text on it. I can tell that CGB is just already like chomping at the bit, just wanting to put together all kinds of random Saga Yorion decks. And I'm not far behind him. That is just definitely going to be one of the memes on release day. That is going to be really fun to try. I don't know. Other thoughts? Snow is definitely looking strong, but I don't think that we've seen the complete package yet. And I think we're going to need to see a little bit more from Snow to start to feel really confident that we want to play it. I'm also waiting for the good dwarves to show up so that we can play our Magda deck. Like the kind of treasure dragon tribal dwarf deck has not come together yet, so I'm a little bit disappointed about that. What else are your thoughts, CGB?
This set looks mid-rangey as hell.
Yeah, dude.
This is one of the more like battleship kind of battle cruiser Magic, I think they've called it in the past, where it's just siege rhinos bumping into mantis riders and wingmate rocks and dune blasts. These are all boomer cards that aren't even on Arena, but like when you just picture both sides having 2 or 3 sagas progressing in a game, it's a very different from kind of the curve out smash face that you might be used to.
Yep. Absolutely. I agree. This I feel like games in this set are gonna resemble like Teamer Adventure mirrors or like Yorion mirrors, right? Where it's just there's just so much advantage. There's so much crap flying around, and honestly, like the person who can stay focused and stay awake better wins in those matchups. All right, well, that's going to do it for this week, and we will look forward to bringing you even more spoilers next week, and this set releases soon, so very, very excited to see that coming. You can find ArenaCraft everywhere that you might find podcasts. We're on YouTube. There's a wonderful version of this with the card pictures illustrated on YouTube if you want to watch that. Leave a comment if you want to. You can also go and harass Covert Go Blue on his YouTube channel and on his live Twitch stream. CGB, catch you next week, buddy.
See you next time. Later.